I'm going to teach you how to sew an over-the-collar dog bandana, even if you're a novice like me. I made these really cute flannel bandanas for my new puppy that just slip right over the collar. This way you don't need to deal with tying them around your dog's neck and they stay in place nicely. I went to my local fabric store and I picked up 6 different patterns. I purchased about half a yard of each and I was able to make all of these colors in underneath an hour. All you need are a few basic supplies. I have this transparent ruler and this cutting mat. I also splurged and got this rolling cutter, which was an absolute lifesaver. The first thing you're going to do is put your rubber mat on the bottom and place your first piece of fabric over the top. You're going to use this transparent ruler right over the top to make cutting really easy. You could refer to the sizing options below in the comments, but I'm making an 8-inch square. I just follow along with my ruler, and if you want to make cutting even easier, get a plaid like me and you can just follow along with the lines and make sure that you always have a square edge. Once you have your 8-inch squares cut out, you're going to take everything over to the ironing board. And your life will be a lot easier if you get some spray starch. The bottle will last a really long time and it just keeps everything flush and even throughout the process. And I will be ironing between every step. That helps significantly with making sure that you're sewing your seams evenly. And I do want to note that from each half yard of fabric, I'm going to be able to make several different dog bandanas. So as my puppy grows, I'll be able to make new bandanas from the same exact fabric. When you take your fabric squares over to the ironing board, just give it a good spray with your starch and then iron it until it's dry. I flip it over and spray on the other side as well. It only takes a moment and it's a really crucial step in making sure that the process goes nice and smooth. The next step is to fold over the bandana in half so you're left with a nice triangle. I try to meet up the points as closely as I can and I really go over and iron it nice and flat. You will notice that there is a little bit of overlap on the edges. This is inevitable because your cutting is not perfect, so I'm just going to take off this extra edge to make sure everything is lined up exactly perfectly before I start doing any sort of sewing. So I'll take it back over to my cutting mat and I'll get out my transparent ruler again. I'll line it up as close as I can on the edge and I'll just take off that little overlapping strip so everything is exactly matching and even before I start any sort of sewing. You're going to go back over to your ironing board. You're going to open up your bandana and you're going to find that crease in the center. You're going to fold the points over into the center and measure with your transparent measuring tool 4 inches at the base. Make sure that each triangle that's folded over is exactly 4 inches and you're going to iron this into place. This is going to be used for slipping the bandana over the collar. I'm using a 1-inch collar for my puppy, so 4 inches is adequate. But if you do have a wider width collar, you may want to make this triangle a little bit wider at the base. You do want to make sure you're paying attention to which is the right side and the wrong side of the fabric. Make sure your triangles were ironed down towards the wrong side of the fabric. Now I'm going to fold the bandana in half so the right sides are facing each other, and I'm going to iron down the center so everything meets flush and evenly. Once this is pressed securely, I'm going to take it over to my sewing machine. And there are a couple of different seams we're going to be sewing. I'm going to sew down each edge of the triangle on either side, and then I'm going to be folding the bandana over and sewing down the edges. Let me show you how that looks on my sewing machine. The first thing you're going to sew are the small triangles, so open up your handkerchief and sew down both of these small triangles. I like to put it in my machine, get to the point of the triangle, and simply turn my needle and sew down the other edge, so you never need to release your needle during this process. I'm going to go over to the other side and sew down the second triangle as well, so then when I'm finished, my open handkerchief has 2 sewn down triangles, one on either side. Now you can fold your bandana in half so the right sides are facing each other, and you're going to sew down these long edges. Make sure that you're not sewing along this open bandana area here. You want to make sure you leave that open so it can be slipped right over the collar. So right at that intersection, you're going to sew down to the point of your handkerchief, turn your needle, and sew up the other side. Once I've gotten to this point, I'd like to take my scissors and trim off any hanging threads that might be left on my bandana. You're going to take that opening of the collar and just slip everything through to turn this right side out. This can take a couple of minutes and can be a little bit finicky, but it will slide right side out, and then you're left with a handkerchief that looks like this. There's only one more step to complete the bandana. You need to sew one more seam to make sure you make a pocket for the collar. To make this process super simple and fast, I highly recommend that you get a marker pen that has invisible ink. They sell these in any sewing shop, or you can get them on Amazon as well. Just line up your straight edge along the bottom edge of this collar area. Take your marker pen and just draw a straight line. This will show you exactly where you need to sew on your sewing machine, and you'll make sure that everything is nice and even. This step is fairly crucial because if your seam is uneven here, it can be quite difficult to thread the bandana through your collar. I'm just going to run this through my machine. It's one single straight line. It just takes a moment. And when I'm finished, I have a product that looks like this. If you use a matching colored thread, it will essentially disappear, so you won't even notice it. You can see that I'm left with a pocket. And now I can take it and slide it right over my collar. I think it looks completely adorable. I'm so pleased with how they turned out. I'm going to be making a lot more as my puppy grows. And here's the final product on my puppy. He is about 10 weeks old here, and the 8-inch square, and it fits him perfectly.